What does a good dissertation title looks like? What mistakes can prevent you from writing a good title? In this video, I am going to highlight 6 mistakes to avoid when writing your dissertation title. If they feature in your title, that's usually not a good sign. And from identifying the mistakes, I am going to highlight 6 features of a good dissertation title or thesis that you can use to evaluate your own title. At the end, I'm also going to show you examples of good final dissertation titles so that you can see what they look like. I am Miguel 𝗃𝗏𝗧𝗏. I am the founder and chief content developer of the Dissertation Academy. And here in the Academy, we are all about bringing you unique tips and tools to help you write a better dissertation. One of the reasons that motivated me to start developing materials to help students write better dissertations was the fact that there are simple mistakes that can be avoided to great benefit to the quality of the work. And it all starts with the working title. The title is so important that I can often guess an approximate grade for the dissertation just by reading the title. Why am I able to do it? Because if I see any of the 6 mistakes I'm going to mention in this video, that's usually not a good sign for the research. Every year, at the beginning of the academic year, I run a session with final year students and I ask them to submit their working title ahead of the session. During the session, I provide comments about their working titles, highlighting strengths and weaknesses, and then offering recommendations for improvement. So what are these weaknesses? The first issue that you should be aware of is illustrated by this dissertation title. To what extent do societal trends, particularly surrounding gendered norms, influence the use of performance-enhancing steroids during the Olympics? And the key issue here is one of researchability. Researchability is about, can you research what you want to research? And researching this topic may be challenging because it requires fairly advanced methodology. It may be that participants are not available, the data is not available, and therefore it's going to be really hard to develop a valid and reliable methodology. And in this instance, because this was for an undergraduate research, it's also that the topic itself is more than just an undergraduate dissertation, even if you can research it. So there's simply too much, it's too complex, too ambitious for an undergraduate research. So there are issues with researchability that the student needs to work on with a view to select a topic that can be researched. The second issue comes from the following working title, Exploration of Consumer Behavior within the Tourism Industry During a Crisis. And the key issue here is one of being too broad. It's too broad because it's referring to consumer behavior, which is a vast area. There are so many things within consumer behavior that you can do your research on, that consumer behavior is simply too broad. And therefore, the solution in these cases is to make the title more specific, and in this instance, clarify what about consumer behavior the research is going to be on. The third issue is illustrated by the title, Is Seeking Cultural Authenticity a Main Motivation for Consumers Attending Christmas Markets in Europe? And can you identify what the key issue here is? Actually, it's not about the topic itself, it's about how the topic is articulated, how the question is asked. And in this instance, the question is asked on a yes-no basis. And that's always unwelcome, and it should be avoided at all costs. Why? Because if you formulate a question on a yes-no basis, it means that the answer to the question is a very simplistic one. And in a dissertation, we don't want simple answers. We don't want very complicated ones either, but we don't want simple answers. And therefore, the solution in this case is to rewrite the question with a view to eliminate the yes-no mindset that is embedded in the wording that the student chose. The fourth issue is given by the following title: Corporate Social Responsibility as an Obligation for Businesses who feature solely or partly in the event sector in terms of their long-term survival in a progressively option-rich market. Can you identify what the issue is in this case? As you could see, I had to stop a few times to breathe. It means that the title is very long, and if it's very long, it tends to be convoluted. It fails to clearly communicate what the research is about. And this is a good example of how writing more doesn't mean that you're writing better. As we will see at the end in the examples of good dissertation titles, they tend to be quite short and straight to the point. So the solution in this case is to make them shorter and much more straight to the point. The fifth issue that we can identify that negatively affects the research is given by the following title: To explore the importance of user-generated content on Instagram that direct buyers' awareness of small business brands and purchase intentions. Can you pick up the issue with this particular question? You should be able to, because it's related to something that we already mentioned. The question is framed around the importance, whether something is important or not. And therefore, what are the possible answers? It's either important or not important. It's a variation on the yes-no mindset. And therefore, whenever I see the importance word in the title, it tends to be a source of confusion, source of simplification. Therefore, it tends to negatively affect the rest of the research. The sixth and final issue that you should be aware of is provided by the following statement: Can corporate environmental responsibility be implemented successfully within the events industry? How can venues execute strategies to minimize green issues? Can you identify? There are actually two issues in this example. One, you should be able to pick it up already, because the first question is actually a yes-no question. Can something be implemented successfully? The possible answers are yes or no. The other issue relates to the fact that there are two questions when you should have one question only. Do not overcomplicate and ask many questions in your title. Stick to one, a good question, and that should be enough to guide your research. So there we have the 6 issues that you should avoid when writing your working title, and you should work towards avoiding it being present in your final title. From here, we can actually define 6 characteristics of a good title. So the good title is researchable, is specific, avoids yes-no questions, is short and concise, avoids the word importance, and embeds one question only. So we can use this as a template to evaluate our own titles as we start to come up with it, and also throughout the process until we settle for a final title. At the beginning, I promised you that I would show you some examples of good dissertation titles, which I'm going to do now. But before I do it, I would like to invite you to like the video if you are enjoying it, and also to subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed yet. And also consider subscribing to the Virtual Tutor online resource, where we provide a lot more unique tips and tools to help you write a better dissertation. The link is in the description below. So let's move on to look at past good titles, and I'm going to do it by dividing the titles into quantitative and qualitative research titles. So the first quantitative research title is the effect of mental well-being and social interaction on the fear of missing out, FOMO. So the title is quite short, it can be research, it's straight to the point, it doesn't include the word importance, it doesn't feature the yes-no mindset, and therefore it meets all those criteria that we identified. In this instance, it's about understanding the relationship between two things, mental well-being and social interaction, and something else, which is fear of missing out. The second title is examining the factors influencing impulse buying on event tickets. Again, the six elements that we looked at earlier are fulfilled. There's no word importance, no yes, no question, and so on. In this case, the student is looking at impulse buying and more specifically, what influences impulse buying. We don't know what the factors are. The title doesn't need to provide all the detail. We just know it's a study on the factors influencing impulse buying. Obviously, we would need to read more, the abstract, for example, to understand what those factors are. The third example of a quantitative research title is the effectiveness of influencer Instagram stories on story engagement and event brand equity. Again, straight to the point, it's a good question. It's not too long, it's not convoluted, and certainly it can be researched. So in this instance, from a theory perspective, it's about engagement and brand equity in the context of Instagram stories posted by influencers. And it's trying to understand how those stories change, affect, influence, engagement, and brand equity. Let's move on to the qualitative research questions. The first one is the outcomes, outputs, and techniques of confidentiality event design. And again, very straight to the point. We know it's about outcomes, outputs, and techniques. About what? Of confidentiality event design. Certainly none of the 6 mistakes that we identified, the 6 issues that we identified are present in the title. The second example of qualitative research is the antecedents and consequences of bidding behavior at charity fundraising auctions. Again, the title clearly communicates that it's about bidding behavior, and it's also about antecedents and consequences. We may not know from the title what it's meant by antecedents and consequences, but it's not a big issue because, again, that can be clarified in the abstract and as we read more the dissertation. The third and final qualitative research example is constraints to participate in business incentive travel, a hybrid constraint approach. And here the key concept is constraints in a particular context, constraints to participate in business incentive travel. And the title also clarifies that there's an approach that was taken by the research, which the author calls a hybrid constraint approach. Again, we don't know exactly what it means in practice, but the title already gives a clue as to what approach was adopted, and then we can clarify the specifics of that approach once we read more in the dissertation. At this stage, a little warning is warranted. These are the final titles, and therefore you cannot expect to have such clear titles at the beginning. If you are at the beginning, don't stress because you haven't got such clear titles. These titles have gone through substantial writing and rewriting. I know because I supervised the students, and I know that they didn't start with these titles. But their own reflections, my own support, means that at the end they could write very high quality titles. So these titles or titles like this is what you want your title to look like at the end. Your efforts should be on trying to understand what a good title looks like and work towards getting there. By the time you settle, you clarify most things about your research. And hopefully this video will have helped you to improve your title. That's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.